Hello, fellow risk takers, and welcome to my worst investment ever. Stories of loss to keep you winning. In our community, we know that to win in investing, you must take risk, but to win big, you've got to reduce it. If you're not already a member of our community, go to myworstinvestmentever.com right now to join and receive the following 5 free benefits. First, you get the risk reduction checklist. Second, my weekly investment research email to help you increase returns. Then you get a 25% discount on all A Stotts Academy courses, instant access to the Facebook community to get to know guests and fellow listeners. And finally, you'll get access to my curated list of the top 10 podcast episodes. Fellow risk takers, this is your worst podcast host, Andrew Stotts from A Stotts Academy, and I'm here with featured guest, Chris Trikomitis. Chris, are you ready to rock?
I'm ready, Andrew.
Let's do it.
Always ready to rock.
Yeah. But let me introduce you to the audience. Chris is in particularly high demand and is often requested to give informative and motivating keynote speeches at local and international events worldwide. Chris has an array of experience from the investment banking sector in London and the US, as well as working in financial services for over 17 years. Now a coach, investor, and entrepreneur, Chris's background ranges from developing competitive business strategies, sales, marketing, and he has been instrumental to growing various businesses. Chris, take a minute and fill any further tidbits about your life.
Thank you. Andrew, just to thank you for having me on the show. Always great to see you. Been a great conversation prior to getting on the show. Yes, a lot of tips of my life and a lot of bad investments. I would say the worst one is definitely suited for this show. Would you like me to start?
Let's go into it. Well, I think it's time to share your worst investment ever. So take it away.
Well, one thing I would say, just don't feel bad if any of you have hit worst investments. We all do it, and this is my story. My worst investment, obviously, based on your introduction to myself, I'm mainly focused on financial investments. I decided to go into physical investments. I wanted to own a restaurant style kind of bar, restaurant, and co-working space. The idea was to get the co-working space to pay for the rent, the restaurant to pay for the profit, and then kind of use both businesses to give people the opportunity to have a quiet place to work, like you see people on keyboards and stuff in Starbucks all the time, and then give them the opportunity to take advantage of some of our food by giving free credits, which will then encourage them to buy more business. I would say, Andrew, that I was kind of manipulated into that kind of investment. As you probably will know, I think you do know, we've spoken about it in depth prior. I was more sold on the lifestyle. I was looking at things more from a consumer perspective rather than an actual investor. So that was my first problem. I went into it. I invested in the program. We thought it was going to make a lot of money. We were going to turn it into kind of like a chain. We were looking for spaces that were big enough to host both co-working and restaurants, and we had dreams of, eventually doing hotels and all this kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I did invest after being wined and dined from morning to night, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all different locations owned by the same group, asking me to invest. Totally sold me on the lifestyle. Ended up having great drinks with them, bar life and everything after that. Invested into the program. And then when it come down to actually getting the work done and, determining what the menu is going to look like, the design and everything else, I think that's really where I stalled and completely failed on this investment. I didn't have the experience to do it in the first place, and I think I should have never entered this investment. But again, it's always a lesson learned. And, specifically, I would say that if you come from an online type of investment world, physical investments are completely different ball games. So I think that's where
And when you first went into this, was it your impression that you were going to be running it or involved in the day-to-day operations, or was it that you were going to be able to enjoy the profits and the atmosphere and all of that stuff? How was that?
Well, when you get sold on the lifestyle, you kind of want to be involved. even though you don't have the experience. But ultimately, the goal of any investment that you do, I think for everyone speaking, is that you want to make the profits, right? So the idea is that I thought that the team was going to come in, guide me, push me in the right direction, and then I was going to make the profits as an investor. I wanted to be a silent investor, and then you kind of have to get involved to ensure that your investment takes off. So yeah, I was more so on the making profit side of things, I would say.
And do you think that the intent was, just was the intent to get you to run it, or was the intent just to get you invested and then it kind of stumbled into, oh crap, nobody's doing anything here? So
it kind of stumbled. Stumbled into me getting more involved. Again, when you're in the lifestyle, you kind of turn up to the restaurant, you want to see things happening. When you realize things are not happening, then you kind of stumble into the position of having to push things through. And I think that's what that's where I kind of stumbled into the more operational side of things rather than just an investor.
And before we go into the next section where we'll talk about what you learned, maybe you could just kind of summarize how it ended, roughly, like what was the day when you realized, crap, I'm not going to get that money back?
Well, basically, I think it was when I realized that the money we were spending on a monthly basis didn't cover the costs. And, no matter how many ideas and marketing and stuff that we did, I realized that was a very long-term process. When you're doing online marketing, it's a long-term process. And I just didn't know how long I would want to keep that investment alive and keep investing in it. So eventually it just hit me that, it wasn't my skill set to begin with, and maybe I should just call it a day and focus my time on something that I actually generate more income on.
And if you had decided to continue on, was the funding meant to come from you or from new investors or from the people you were partnering with? What was the plan for funding if the company was not going to make money in the beginning?
Yeah, originally, I guess it was meant to come from me. And then I made a clear decision that I didn't want to go down that route. And then it came from, we started looking towards finding other investors, and that's where it got a bit challenging.
And I'm just curious, one other last thing is you used an interesting word at the beginning. Like you said, manipulated. When we first talked about it, I kind of said seduced. But just maybe you could just explain that just a little bit, because I know that there's some people out there that, maybe in a type of situation where they may be able to hear what it was like for you and to say, well, maybe that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think what happens is when I would use your terminology, seduced, you eventually do become manipulated if you participate in the seduction, right? So what happened there was I was seduced I was wined and dined. I really liked what I saw. I was very, very involved in that kind of lifestyle. I wanted to kind of continue being involved in that lifestyle. I saw the lifestyle that the other people were having. And I wanted to be a part of that. And eventually I put my money behind that to kind of get that dream that I wanted. What I would say is that to remember one thing is that whenever anyone's asking you for any sort of investment, it basically means two things. One, they don't have the investment, and two, they will say anything to get your investment. So you've got to remember, a sale is a sale. They're not there to tell you the bad things. They're there to tell you everything that's great about the investment for you to invest. They will purposely skip, let's say, the bad points that maybe you should be more worried about. And that's where you have to start thinking for yourself.
Yep. Okay, so let's review. What lessons did you learn from this?
Well, I learned that basically to stick to what I'm good at and stop getting carried away so easily when people show me a different perspective on life. Yep. You can earn that same lifestyle by being cautious and making your own investments a bit more carefully and doing a lot more research. Yes, there's a lot more work involved, but ultimately it doesn't mean you can't gain that lifestyle. Just don't try and shift too far away from what you're good at to try and gain it, because you might not have the expertise to see it through.
Great. So maybe I've been writing down some things as you've been talking, and right. Maybe I'll share some of my thoughts on this.
Sure.
The first thing is thinking about the business idea, and really a co-working space and a nice restaurant may be very different things. In some ways, I feel like you're drawing, you have one arrow aimed at two targets.
Yes.
And you can't hit both. And if you aim
Right.
for both, you're going to hit neither.
Right. So I can tell you how that was actually sold to me. So what we did was we went to Starbucks, and there's a lot of people in Starbucks with their laptops sitting down working. And then we were like, they were like, look, you know, if that person wants to go to the bathroom right now, they have to take their laptop and everything with them. But in a co-working space, you don't have to do that. Everything's secure. Right. So they were saying the younger generation want to be able to work from Starbucks. And this is what we're trying to create, a co-working space, Starbucks type of environment where it's safe for you to actually work there. You can still enjoy food and drinks and coffees as you like. And that was kind of the concept behind it. It made sense to me at the time.
Yep. And that brings me to the next thing, which is the concept of testing theories, right? Like that's a theory that they propose to you. But the only way we'll really know is if we figure out a way to test it. And the key to success in business is figuring out a way to test it without requiring a lot of money.
Yes.
So that's a second part. I think the third thing that's kind of interesting about Asia is that there are certain types of people in Asia that I would call them access people.
Right. Yes.
And I've come across them many times in my life in Thailand, where they bring you into a world. They give you access to a world that you probably never saw before. And
Correct.
it could be a world of, you know, nights out and fancy this, fancy cars. It could be a world of beautiful women. It could be all kinds of different parts of that world. And I know my best friend and I, Dale, we have a coffee factory here in Thailand. And both of us we've come across some access people that have invited us either personally, individually, or together to different access events that they were giving us access to. And we knew every time we went to one of these things, we just knew that, you know, there's something that's going to be asked of us. Yeah, there's going to be something asked of us, right?
Yeah.
And so basically what we decided to do is just leave. And we left, and on many times we were like, well, really appreciate it, and this was great, and you know, let's keep in touch. And then we just went home. And then we went back to building our business, and we had a lot of access people that approached us over the years that they could give us access to customers and government, this and that. And again, we just said, you know, we just don't know much about that, you know, so we really appreciate it, but no thanks. Right. And the end result of that is that our business has not grown as big as it could have.
Right.
Over the 26 years now that we've been in business for that business.
Mm-hmm.
But the good side of that is that all the revenue is ours. All of the profits, all of the infrastructure of that business was built around, you know, a solid foundation. So there's a trade-off. And in Asia, I tell you, if you do not get involved in some of the access opportunities, you know, not all of them are a ripoff. Some of them are just,
correct.
You know, but everything is pay to play everywhere in the world.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, look, I've been in exactly the same situations as you, Andrew, especially in Thailand. I think that's probably the motherland of these kind of things. I've been invited to parties, events. I've been invited to come just to see things and how they're operating. I've been invited into government kind of access set networks and circles. And, you know, I always thought that, it's good to know these kind of people because you could always ask them for assistance on your side, but actually it's always the opposite way around. The agenda is always for them to ask you. So therefore it becomes kind of like a catch-22. And I'm exactly like you. I mean, I have a partner in Thailand that I work with still to this day, great guy. And, you know, he sometimes gets carried away, and I always say to him, let's just stick to what we're good at. If we don't know enough about it, just say no. And sometimes I can see he's a bit hurt in saying no because he feels there's an opportunity there, but we have to say no. If we don't understand it, exactly like you, we just say no now.
Mm. And then I guess the last thing that you mentioned many times was the word lifestyle.
Yes.
And I remember, you know, I've lived in the same place for 16, 17 years. It's an apartment. It's not fancy. And I remember a friend of mine from the Ministry of Finance used to see me and he'd say, you've got to spend more money. You got to get a fancier car. You can't walk around with a backpack around, you know, and hiking in the, park or whatever. You gotta show it more. But I was just brought up on keeping my lifestyle simple. And so
Yeah.
I have kept my lifestyle simple all my life. And I haven't aspired to that type of lifestyle. One additional thing is that I don't drink. And so going out and drinking and partying is just not that interesting to me at this point in my life. But the lifestyle, I think that's where the word seduction comes in. And I think you have to be careful not to be seduced into it. That would be my last main takeaway from what you've talked about. Anything else you would add?
I would say I'm kind of with you in a certain way. Obviously, I come from a Greek heritage background, very simple people, love to enjoy life. It's all about family and spending time together rather than where you spend that time. It's about spending it together. So I've grown up like that. When I say lifestyle, yes, when it's something you're not used to, sometimes you can be seduced into thinking that's what you want. I think I've come to realize that it's not. I mean, I have 2 children, I have my wife, I have a couple of dogs as well. I take them walking, I go hiking all the time, like what you were saying with the backpack stuff. Maybe not the way you do it, but maybe I do it differently. I just like to go walking for an hour or 2 hours or cycling and stuff like that. And I think that's the real important part, is just enjoying your life with people you love and cherish, rather than thinking you need more than that. And once you think you need more than that, that's when you get, let's say, blinded by the other side of how things could be, let's say.
A great song by Bruce Springsteen called Blinded by the Light.
Yes, exactly.
So based upon what you learned from this story and what you continue to learn, and I wanted you to think about young man or woman out there that's being seduced in some ways, what one action would you recommend our listeners take to avoid suffering the same fate?
I think the best thing people can learn from this is, I've learned to appreciate what I have. If I want to go and buy all the nice cars and stuff today, I can. I just choose not to. I just want a simple, nice home, a bit of land next to it, so my kids can play, the dogs can play. And if I'm not looking beyond that, I will not get seduced. So what you're doing in essence is you got to learn to take a step back when you're in a situation. And it's very easy to get caught up by someone else's energy, right? They give you that high energy, that lifestyle, and you got to literally take a step back and think about the people around you that you want to spend your time with. Take a step back and say, is this going to be good for them long term? Can I do this for them, or could I potentially risk their future? Like if you have kids or stuff. And that's the thing that I use to kind of ground myself, is my children. I always say to myself, am I taking money away from their future by investing in something that could potentially not work? Regardless of how exciting this sounds and regardless of how amazing this guy makes it seem, can I just take a moment to take a step back and say, is this really what I need to do right now? Because there's always a right time to do something. So maybe you got to play with that.
Yeah.
You know what you're thinking.
My best friend from childhood is half Greek, half Italian. And his great grandfather came to America, and basically what he did is he did create like a trust fund for his kids. And I was always kind of amazed by that, because my parents didn't do that, or my grandparents didn't do that. But, talk about the importance of taking care of family and making sure that there's money for the future. So last question. What's your number one goal for the next 12 months?
For the next 12 months, literally, I've just, I've got my business to where I want it to be. I'm just refining the costs and everything that we do to make sure that it's as profitable as I want it to be, keep it sustainable, build a strong foundation. So I guess I could spend more time away from that. My goal is to build a very, very strong foundation for my company. I think if you're needed to be involved in a particular business, you have to try and make yourself redundant. Otherwise, you will never enjoy your life, and your business will always rely on you. So my goal is really to start making myself redundant in my business, and do, based on the last lesson that I mentioned that I learned, is spend more time with the people that I love and enjoy, and that will keep me grounded, I believe.
Great. Well, listeners, there you have it. Another story of loss to keep you winning. My number one goal for the next 12 months is to help you, my listeners, reduce risk and increase return in your life. To achieve this, I've created our community where you gain the 5 benefits I mentioned earlier. Just go to myworstinvestmentever.com right now to join us. As we conclude, Chris, I want to thank you again for coming on the show. And on behalf of A Stotts Academy, I hereby award you alumni status for turning your worst investment ever into your best teaching moment. Do you have any parting words for the audience?
The only thing I would like to say is, Andrew, is thank you for having me on the show. It's a great opportunity to actually speak about the negative side of things. And I want people to realize, I want the listeners of this show to basically just remember that always take a step back before you make a decision and think about it from an all-round perspective, not just with your heart. Think with your
Beautiful. And that's a wrap on another great story to help us create, grow, and protect our wealth. Fellow risk takers, this is your worst podcast host, Andrew Stotts, saying, I'll see you on the upside.